Hey Harmony House, how's it going? Welcome to Chapter Book Storytime. We are on chapter 20 today of the Magic Misfits, the second story. And in our last chapter, Layla just finished her performance. Hello, Noodles. Thank you. As soon as I start reading, she always comes to my lap. Anyway, so in the last chapter, Layla just did her performance on stage at the Grand Oak Resort, opening for Sandra Santos. And, you know, she was sad that her dad, Mr. Dante Vernon, was not going to be there. And we don't entirely know why. He said he had some really important work thing to do that he couldn't reschedule, but we didn't get any more information. Even Sandra called him and begged him to come to the show and said she needed him there. And we don't really know why. Oh, thank you, Noodles. And let's see, but she did have her papa there, the other Mr. Vernon, and her whole group of friends who helped her out a little bit, with her show, and she did it. She succeeded. Her tricks worked. She was able to do all of her escape tricks. The crowd loved it. You know, the audience was clapping for her, and she's so proud of herself, and she's feeling so thankful for all the love and support that she has. And she knows that, you know, her dad, Mr. Dante Vernon, is still loving and supporting her even if he can't be there. And so she's feeling really good right now. So we're about to move on to chapter 20. There's still a lot of mysteries left for us to solve. You know, they found that map of the underground tunnels. There's the mystery of Layla's key that she still doesn't know what it opens. Still kind of unraveling this mystery of the Emerald Ring, Mr. Dante Vernon's old magic club with his friends. So let's see if we're able to unravel some of those mysteries in chapter 20. Here we go. While the stagehands prepped the stage for the main act, the stage manager directed the kids to a group of open seats in the first row. Strangers kept patting Layla on the back and congratulating her. A few random kids even rushed up to her and asked, "Can we have your autograph?" "Of course," Layla agreed, "but only if my friends sign as well." The Misfits beamed as they passed the pens and paper around. Soon the auditorium lights dimmed and the audience hushed. Madame Esmeralda's show was starting. All right, so Layla was the opening act for Sandra Santos. And if you remember, Sandra Santos her stage name, her kind of like performance name for her psychic shows is Madame Esmeralda. So now we get to see how her performance goes. There were whispers in the row behind the Misfits about yesterday's seance. "Did you see what that psychic did? Those flashing lights were terrifying. She must be really special if she quieted those ghosts." So they're talking about when Sandra went to the rear wing of the Grand Oak Resort, and she made it look as though she were talking to the ghosts, and there were lights flashing in the windows, and then she said, "The ghosts have now left the building." So that's what they're referring to. A voice boomed out, shocking everyone into silence. "And now, please join the Grand Oak Resort in welcoming an illustrious talent to our stage. Guard your mind, steel your spirit, harden your nerves, because you are about to encounter the world's most confounding clairvoyant, Madame Esmeralda." From the darkened stage came a blast of noise and light and smoke, and then Madame Esmeralda appeared, walking out of a fog. Her smile lit up the room as she bowed. Then she raised her arms in gratitude toward the crowd. Her performance was as sleek and polished as crow feathers. She began by collecting little note cards on which audience volunteers had written statements about themselves. Reading through a few of them, she walked off the stage and moved through the aisles, the spotlight following her from above, surrounding her in a halo of chilly light. To a red-haired woman, she said, "Your mother worked for a Midwestern bank." To a tie-wearing man, "Your favorite color is mayonnaise white." To a teenage girl, "Your middle name is Anna Rose." And to an old man of small stature, "You were once bitten by a shark near the island of St. John." Madame Esmeralda spoke to more and more people, and each of them stared at her in shock. "From the stunned looks on your faces," she called out, "it seems like I've struck some major chords." The crowd murmured, conferring with one another. Was I correct? Each of the volunteers stood and said, "Yes!" The audience burst into surprised applause, and the volunteers sat down again. So she called up these volunteers, and she basically told them something about themselves that she couldn't possibly know. Like, she doesn't know these people, or unless it's some sort of trick, she doesn't know these people. And she calls them up and she's telling them details about themselves that she shouldn't know. Like, how would you know what someone's favorite color is if you've never met them before and never talked to them? How would you know that someone once got bitten by a shark if you'd never met them before and never talked to them? So she's using her psychic powers to read into their lives. Or at least, that's what she's saying she's doing. I don't know if there's a trick behind it. I guess we'll have to keep reading to find out. "For my next feat, we must all become a mite more mystical." She returned to the stage and removed a thin white candle from a pocket within her clothes. She dramatically struck a match. "Lights, please." She called out to the people up in the theater booth. The stage lights faded into an overwhelming blackness. The candlelight flickered just below Madame Esmeralda's face, throwing spooky shadows across her features. She shouted, "I call upon the ancestors of this crowd to join us here tonight." A hush fell over the audience. Then, growing subdued, Madame Esmeralda closed her eyes and whispered, "Be still." With a small grin, she added, "Allow them to say hello." From around the cavernous room, there came sudden shouts and cries of fear. Someone called out, "It touched my neck." Another, "Something pinched my arm." Another person shrieked and shouted, "Its fingers are cold." Another, "My hair." And again, "My foot." Layla glanced around, wondering if one of the spirits might try to touch her too. So she calls the spirits into the room, and people are saying that they can feel the spirits touching them. Do you think they actually are feeling anything? "Lights!" Madame Esmeralda proclaimed, just as the audience seemed about to revolt and dash through the exit doors, fleeing into the hotel and out into the night. Her voice was a strong and steady comfort. "There is no reason to be scared. Spirits do not travel from the other side to hurt us. They're simply reminding us that they once lived here too. I shall now invite these spirits to speak through me." The crowd grew restless again, talking among themselves. "But first, I need volunteers. If I point to you, please come up on stage with me." Madame Esmeralda randomly plucked 7 people from all around the auditorium. The 7 stood in a line beside the psychic, each of them looking nervously into the glare of the stage lights. There was a stout, middle-aged woman wearing a stiff aqua gown, a taller, stooped gentleman in a pair of slacks, a white shirt, and a black tie, a very small boy dressed in a sailor outfit, and a girl who was a bit taller than the boy beside her, wearing an A-shaped black and white polka dot dress. A large man with broad shoulders wore a brown floor-length fur coat over a dark suit. Layla thought this was odd, since it was so warm outside, but apparently he didn't like the air-conditioned atmosphere inside the auditorium. His wire-rimmed glasses were oversized and completely round, and his long beard tickled the bottom of his collar. Finally, beside him, a couple stood, holding hands. The woman's red hair was coiffed in a high poodle cut. The man was smaller than her, and on his head was an obvious black toupee that didn't match the graying hair at his temples. They were dressed conservatively, in a brown dress and brown suit. Their wide eyes were hopeful. All right, so she's called all these people up onto stage with her. Now let's see what she does. She says she's going to try to have the spirits talk through her. Something about these last two seemed familiar to Layla. She racked her memory for where she might have met them before. Maybe they'd come into the magic shop this week. Had they been the ones who Presto had accosted with the strange message? Or had Layla seen them earlier than that? A long time ago. Oh, and that's the end of our chapter. Oh, interesting. So Sandra calls all these people up onto the stage, and most of them seem pretty standard. Let's see, there's a middle-aged woman wearing a dress, a taller gentleman wearing a white shirt and a tie, a small boy, a girl, and so those are all pretty standard, nothing strange there. But then she says there's this large man wearing this giant fur coat, which she says is a little strange because it's hot outside, but the room is air conditioned, so okay. But then the last two are a couple, and they seem, pretty standard, but Layla seems to recognize them from somewhere, and she's trying to think of where, and she realizes that she's not sure where she recognizes. Thank you, Noodles. She's not sure where she recognizes them from, but she says she recognizes them from a long, long time ago. I don't know. Who do you think they could be? I wonder if it's someone associated with the orphanage that she lived in before she came to live with the Vernons. I'm not sure. I am intrigued for sure. But we're going to have to wait until next time to continue reading chapter 21, and maybe we'll find out who this mystery couple are. All right. I will see you then, friends. Talk to you later.